and the assessments that are going to measure those. And they also indicate if the student needs additional instructional support or alternative programming. That's sort of like RTI. So when we get to high school, we don't have much longer, do we, to have these kids be college and career ready. So we measure, again, progress toward college and career readiness, but the grade 10 assessments that we're going to be doing this year actually indicate if students are in need of remediation or are they in need of additional coursework and support. And then again this year, we're going to have an assessment in grade 11. That's a college readiness assessment. And we have to go out to bid for that this year. Last year we were able to do a pilot with ACT. This year procurement has told us we have to go out to bid. But a grade 11 assessment that's college and career readiness, it's a national test, is predictive of college and career success, but also can indicate then further need for remediation and support if the student is intending to go to college. And so those are that's 60 in the mathematics. So this will tell you exactly what's being assessed in each grade level. And I'll come back to some of this. So let's start with, what does the federal law require with assessment? Because that is partly what's driven a lot of the large-scale summative assessment, is that Title I, or Every Student Succeeds Act, which is replacing No Child Left Behind. What does it say about assessment? Well, it says that states have to administer high-quality annual assessments in at least reading/language arts, depending on your own standards. If our standards said reading, that's all we'd have to assess. If our standards say language arts, then we need to assess the full breadth and depth of the language arts. Mathematics and science that meet nationally recognized professional and technical standards. So these include, as I've already mentioned, things like validity, reliability, but fairness, technical quality, accessibility. Are these students designed so that students with disabilities and English language learners and all these different groups can take these tests? So they have to be accessible. So the states are required to test in reading, language arts, math annually in grades 3 through 8, and then once in grades 9 through 12 for ELA and math, and for science, one in each grade span. And I'm just going to tell you which one we do in the grade span. So in science, we do the 5. In middle school, what do we do for science? 8. And high school? 10. Going forward will be 10. So you see the science is actually grade 10 through 12. The bill maintains assessment peer review requirements. We will have to go through peer review on all of our new assessments next year. Well, at the end of this year, the results from 16-17, we will set new performance levels, proficiency levels, cut scores, go through standard setting process, because we will have full peer review of those after they're in place, so based on the data of next year. And then we also, it requires states, as we've mentioned, to test the full depth and breadth, which is alignment. It's an alignment issue. Yes?
The 6th through 9th on the science?
No, we had to pick a grade level there. You only have to assess it once in that grade band.
So we picked 8 grades?
We picked 8.
Okay.
Yeah. A long time ago they picked 8 and we just kept doing it. Yes. I think that's the way to say it. And so what about our House bill? Now that's federal law. What about state law? So I will say that we worked with the legislature and we had a bill about 15 pages long. It really looked at this coming transition year, 16-17, because remember, we're decoupling from having graduation requirements at UOIs and all of these things, so there's a big change. So during this, what we're calling the transition year, we asked the legislature to just test what was federally required. You know, give us the basic data we need for that, give us time to have a lot of public input, look at what kind of assessments we want, what do we want to do in high school, what do we want to do here, anyway. So that's what happened, except they did add U.S. history. So we will have the 3 through 8, we will have the grade 10, ELA, math, and science, and then we will have US history, which you can administer if you teach it in 10th grade, 11th grade, when you teach it. But they're all in the spring. These are all spring tests. However, that's a 1 year. So the 1 year transition, but they did give us the 1 year transition, but then they said, well, you're going to have all these studies, you're going to have to consider all of these things, these are the things we want you to decide, and then here's the timeline that you need to bring it back to the legislature. So here are the kinds of things. They tell us again what we have to include, and they're basically what we included this year, because they added US history. But it also says any others the state board wants to add, and it also may include a college and career ready assessment like an ACT or SAT. It also requires, many of you know that right now, and for 16, 17, we'll continue to use our current vendor measure progress, but sometime before the next school year, we have to have issued a request for proposals for the new assessment system, and it will be in place for 6 years to then become aligned with the textbook adoption, which as we all know is all messed up anyway.
So measure progress is going to be building tests related to the blueprints that are here.
Yes. And we already have started, obviously. We had to start very quickly. So we've had our content people as well as our assessment content people have been meeting with committees of teachers to really work on this and get this in place.
We're
All
not
of this
field
is
testing.
aligned with what I give these
Yes.
for this year.
Seems a lot of trouble to go through.
Sorry?
He said measure progress just for this year.
Just for this year because it's the law is requiring us to go out to bid.
But they could win it again.
They can win it again. They just have to be competitive. Yes.
I have a question on the driver's license thing. So is that going to, eighth grade reading? Where does all this fit?
Okay, so you're getting into some of the specifics. Let me stop and go over some of the specifics since you want to hear that. We still have the Reading Sufficiency Act, and there are options for that you can do during the year. Because it's standard setting this year, things are going to be delayed in reporting. It's going to be an issue. However we do it, whatever window we pick for administering the test, there's going to be delays in reporting because of standard setting. So, reading sufficiency, be sure you have that option in place because results are going to be later than you're used to. Okay, 8th grade reading, was that your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
As related to the driver's license? Thank you for bringing that up. We have not actually addressed exactly how we're going to do that, but the law requires us to do reading. So there are kind of two options we have here. Either we take reading as a standard setting and have a standard set for that portion like we do for reading sufficiency, because we pull out the reading and set a standard on those, instead of the whole ELA. So we do the same thing with 8th grade. And then the score would be the 8th grade reading that we have set a standard on. So that's one option. The second option is to change the law just to read the English language arts, and then you can use the total score.
So when is that going to be decided upon?
It has to be decided sometime soon, and of course we can't do anything about changing any legislation until the next year. But the standard setting occurs in the summer. So it's something that we need to discuss. And when we started that years ago, there wasn't necessarily any research that showed that a reading score in particular was what mattered. It was really just an attempt to motivate 8th grade students to do well on the assessment. So maybe more appropriately, it is going to be the ELA test.
Can you
So-
use an alternative, like use the star?
That's
also.
Right,
And the-
right.
And that
I
was
mean, that's what I'm
and
saying.
that was something that was brought up in one of the morning sessions, the RSA I went to.
They have
And they
lots of
said-
options.
And they said the star, the people that sold that to us, a lot of schools, they were told it was the 8.0. It is not the 8.0, it's the it's still 8, but it's 8.3. It's the end of the year score. It's not that first of the year score that I've been using because I thought as soon as it got 8th grade. But the 8th grade is 8.0 is when you begin 8th grade.
Right.
It's not when you end it at 8.0. So if you're one of the schools that's using STAR, go back and ask your people what you've been using, because I just said, oh, if you could get 8.0, you're gonna be good. Well, she said RSA, no, it's it's that last month, 9 month, 6 month, I think it's 6 month, 8.63 or something. But I wrote it down in my notes.
And you know what, this is,
Using STAR, you better check.
this is a very important thing to think about. So, you know, for example, we all think about, we want our tests to be at the very end of the year, and then we want our results the next day, right? And in large-scale assessment, that really doesn't work unless every single student is online and you pre-equated, which we could do after this year. We will do after this year. So there's always this time, so you have to somehow balance when in the year you're going to assess. But the important thing to remember is whenever you assess, that's what the standard is set for. So it is very important that you're using 8.6 or 9 or whatever, depending on when you administer the test versus 8.
Right.
And when we set our standards on the large scale or summative assessment, we consider that same thing. So when groups of teachers come in, we say, so this test is administered in April. So therefore, set the standard thinking that there's still a month of instruction left.
Right.
So that's very important to remember. That has to happen.
It's 8.93.
8.93?
That's, it has to be that or higher. And
Okay.
if it's that, at the end of eighth grade.
Because that would be the month they
that's
assume you're
acceptable.
administering about.
And that's
Right.
if they've got this reading sufficiency plan in place for that child. So, but that's 8.93 is what they're saying.
Good. So anyway, so just keep that in mind. Anytime the standard is set based on that. So what happens if we test early this year because of the having to set a performance level? If we set early, what will that mean? Well, we're only considering a shorter time for instruction, right, when we set it.
Right.
And what if we decide to move the window back the next year because we'll have pre-equated results? It's not going to be, but who's it going to, is it going to be an advantage or a disadvantage to schools? An advantage. It's an advantage, especially if we show more growth. So
Right.
don't worry, if we move the window up this year, don't worry. In the long run, that's not bad. We're setting a new baseline,
Right.
and growth and accountability and all those things are going to be determined from that new baseline. So just keep all of that in mind as we look at this. Okay, so back to House Bill 3218. But I better talk about writing.
Yeah,
Did we talk about
because
writing?
specifically, because I'm the district test coordinator and I've got people, which this morning you guys mentioned about the multiple choice being tested in the 5th and 8th.
Okay, so we have, if you notice in the standards, writing is very entwined in multiple places. So USDE, we were able to work with the United States Department of Ed this year, for those of us, and many of us are in this stage, or doing this. Many states have speaking and listening in their standards. So the consortia have looked at how to assess that. But it was very costly for them to develop tests to do this. And it's also just very difficult to administer. It takes a lot of time. It just lots of disadvantage. So we requested a waiver, and we do not have to test listening and speaking. But there are no waivers in writing. So if writing's in your standards, you test it. And you test it, again, let me emphasize, the full breadth and depth. Do we expect students to be able to produce writing?
Yes.
So that's more than multiple choice, isn't it? Okay. But the bottom line is, what costs the most in our tests? Constructed response. Any constructed or open response is what costs because they're hand scored. Now, eventually, if you were really consistent for a long period of time, you might get machine scored. But right now, we're at the hand scored stage, believe me. So they have to be hand scored. It takes longer. It costs more. So we tried to think, we got to do peer review. We got to test the depth and breadth of our standards. What's sort of a good compromise that we'll see if it will be acceptable? And that is that we decided that we're going to assess with multiple choice, the English language arts standards related to reading that can be assessed with multiple choice in 3, 4, 6, and 7. Grades 3, 4, 6, and 7. So we will keep, or we will include in the ELA assessment the open response or constructed response writing in grades 5, 8, and 10. And they'll be based on passages. We will be posting a rubric at this, we're going to post our test specs and our item specs and all the things we also, because unfortunately Oklahoma was using a rubric that wasn't appropriate. So anyway, you've had some issues with rubrics.
Yeah.
And the ELA people have done a good job of really working on that with a lot of input. So there will be a new rubric posted that will help with that, but it will be a constructed response, and the grade 8 will be online with all the other grade 8 tests. So,
Will the writing test still be given at a different time?
No.
yes, okay, so that becomes the issue. We ask in your window, it won't be outside the window though. It won't be February. It'll be in your window, but the first week of your window, go ahead and give the ELA test first. That way you can return those, like you do the RSA, just return those and we can start hand scoring those. And that's only for grade 5. Because remember, 8 will be online, 10 will be online, that's all. Just administer that during your first part of your window.
So the 8th grade writing portion is gonna be online.
The 3rd grade also has to be, give your English language arts first, because that has to be special box to be scored for the reading sufficiency return, yes. So that also needs to be in the front of the window. But we're not doing any February windows. Okay, so now back, that's all this year. Has everybody kind of got this year now?
No.
Okay.
All right. I need to readdress and rethink 5th grade. So ELA, English Language Arts, for reading and English Language Arts, it's 2 separate tests.
No, think of it as all one test, English language arts.
Yes, I understand it's
But
being
to
combined.
assess the writing, there will be a constructed response.
So it'll be a separate piece, not in the same booklet.
Well, in grade 5,
Yes.
it may be because we probably want it scored first. See what I'm saying? It
Yes.
has to be scored, only because it's scored as part of the test. But since we're not online in 5, it has to be probably.
So it's
Two
not
separate pieces.
And I wish Craig were here to make sure, because we could do it either way, it's just whatever is most efficient. And I think we went with the most cost-efficient way,
Which is one booklet.
which is one booklet.
Well, I think.
Okay, so it's one booklet then.
I'm
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, that's what he confirmed, we looked at both, and really we could do it either way, it's just cost efficiency that we decided was
So
most
basically, it's
important.
the same thing that we have been
But it's
doing,
in the regular window.
but it's in the regular window.
But at the beginning of the window for ELA.
Speech and reading, right?
And it's going to take, you're
Right.
actually going to have 3 sessions. 1 session for writing and 2 sessions if you.
If you set your timing that way, yeah, we usually break our state tests into sessions. I mean, remember, there are tests that are timed, like ACT. So, then you get a much shorter test because they're timed. But, and I hate to use it, we had one teacher this year, and we only found out about it because the school called and requested that these students, a couple of students, be allowed to start testing again the next day, resume testing on students. And so when we started investigating, the students had sat and tested for 12 hours on one content area because the tests are untimed.
They just said, they really do. Some
And
people just
honestly,
said
they really meant it for the student. They were trying to help the student be successful.
Right.
So, they had taught students strategies to really look at this and then mark this and then do this. So they had done all these things, but of course we said, no. When we say untimed, we mean in the school day, we certainly don't mean 12 hours, and so realistically think about your timing, but they are untimed so that they're more accessible. That's part of making them ELLs and other students.
And eighth grade writing will be online.
8th grade writing is online.
So will it be in 2 separate
So that makes
sections?
it a lot easier, but it is timing. I hope that you
Will that be in 2 separate
sessions?
So it'll be 2 sessions, so you'll have.
You know,
a
I'm
session
thinking
to
you'll
do
probably want one
multiple
session.
choice and then 1 session for writing and 1 session another day.
But it just depends how you pass your students. But I think you don't want to miss it.
So there'll be an option for you to do it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So we still have a meeting in October.
Yes. We'll have all our regular DTC meetings and all of our fall training meetings, and all of this will become clearer to you as we get it. So this was just a little bit of an overview. But so to get back to what does House Bill 3218 requires? Okay, this was all 16, 17, right? That we have these content areas and we set standards and so on going forward. So what about House Bill 3218? What does it say about the 1718 assessments? Well, it says they have to align the standards. That's not changing. They need to provide a measure of comparability to other states. Okay, so how do you do that?
Do a norm reference.
You can do a norm reference, but those haven't passed peer review. An ACT does provide both, or SAT provide. That's just for predictive of college success, but they do provide both. So here's another way that you can look at NAEP, we use NAEP. We participate in NAEP. That does give us comparability to other states. But we're looking at another way to look at comparability too. So how many of you know what Lexile are? Okay, you've used Lexile, you know it's a good resource for parents, etc. Starting next year, not the results you're getting sometime, we hope soon, but the next year, we will also add quantiles, which do the same thing for math. So math will have resources that are called quantile scores. So on a student's report, you will have their score range, and that will also, and you'll have a site that they can go to for resources and things, parents, teachers, everybody. It'll be, yes, great. You like it?
I do.
Okay, so
I do.
now the really good thing about this is that Lexiles and quantiles have now been in place long enough that they have developed a national scale.
Dr. Dunlap,
Right.
when did you say this would be implemented?
Okay, they're getting Lexile scores this year,
Okay.
Yeah.
but mostly just as a resource because this year's tests weren't on our standards, right?
Right.
So the new ones in 16, 17 is when we'll add quantile reporting and Lexile reporting. And we have to, for grade 10 and quantiles, you know, in order for us to be able to use their scale, we have to perform linking studies with them. So basically we've been using an old linking study on PASS because guess what? You went back to PASS. So now this year we're conducting a new linking study with our new assessments so that both ELA and math, or reading and math, will have these. So now these provide then this external scale. And so let's say the range is 1,100 to 1,200 for the student. Well, you can compare that to what the national typical for that grade level. So it's sort of like a norm reference comparison. It's looking at that. You can do comparability. You can look at that. And the other great thing, not only can you get comparability from the Lexile quantile, but they have now been around long enough that they've done studies to link it to, this shows where you're college ready.
Right.
So this will allow our 10th grade tests as well as our 8th grade, to show on track. The 10th grade will show this. And even better in some ways, they've done a lot of the research, and it's actually getting to be quite a bit now, that links it to particular careers.
Yes.
So these scores will be giving us a lot of wonderful information. Resources, the link to the external scale, they can give comparability, can give college readiness, career readiness, give you specific careers, so on. And so they've worked with a lot of organizations in order to be able to do this. So they also have to yield a norm reference and criterion reference score. Again, criterion reference just says where are you in relation to knowing the standards. Whereas a norm reference says how are you doing compared to an external or another group. And some tests are both. And our state test, for example, we could easily give a norm in Oklahoma if you wanted one. And then you could compare yourself to the norm. Just what's going to be used and how you're going to use it. That determines what kind of information you want back. Statistically reliable and accurate. And in high schools, provide that measure of future academic performance. So House Bill 3218, and this is the good news, you used to have 7 EOIs. Now you're going to have the grade 10 test with ELA, math, and science, and you are going to have the U.S. history. So it eliminates all the non-federally required except U.S. history. It repeals the end of instructions, the OCCTs, and ACE as currently given. So, people keep calling us and saying, well, when should we retest somebody on something? No, the retest window is now over. The summer retest was winding down, and we're going to be done with that. And as of July 1st, your board is able to set requirements for graduation as far as assessment goes. Same curriculum, same course requirements at this point, but the tests are up to your district for the 4-year cohort. So it also eliminates the requirement for districts to administer a fine arts assessment. So some of you that sent that in June 30th, it's your last one. No longer has to be submitted. You can continue to do it, just we don't have to be involved. And it also asks us to set rules It's not fair if a student transfers in after the junior year to have assessment requirements for them. So it looks at us to set rules for that. And it does require district, starting in 17-18, to report assessment scores and business industry certifications on transcripts. Then it includes all of these other things, because what it comes down to is they're making us put together an assessment plan, an accountability plan, graduation requirements. All of this has to be approved by the state board. All of it has to go back to the legislature for their approval, which we hope we have a big enough consensus that that can happen and that they get approved and we can move forward. So that's a real challenge, as you can see, but we have a lot of smart people involved in working on this, and we have lots of opportunities to get input from all of you. We've been doing poll everywhere, surveys online, just a lot of different things to gather this information. We also have to set performance levels for mediation. That's really shouldn't be hard. What do we do right now? Unsatisfactory and limited knowledge. Oh, that's what they mean by that. Also, how should we ensure student accountability on assessments? You know, that's how we ended up with it being graduation requirements, is that school people, we all said, well, the students aren't accountable. Okay, so let's make it a graduation requirement. Now they're accountable. And then you have to administer the test 5 times a year and have retests. And, you know, when you make assessment a graduation requirement, it is going to necessitate that you give them multiple opportunities to pass that test. Ways to make the testing program more efficient, cost-effective, and a multi-measures approach to accountability based on ESSA. There are 5 indicators, and they're in your book that you can see. So we're getting all this public input, comment, and we have to have a study, and the board has to start approving things October 31st, and before December 31st, a final recommendation from the board after public hearings and everything else has to go to the legislature. Then we hope they move quickly and approve it so that we can get to a new accountability system, but they have to approve a new system. They also have to get what's currently in law, which is A through F. I mean, right now, we're calculating like we always have because it's still in state law. So that has to get changed next year.
You think they'll change the A through F stuff?
Some of them are very attached to the designation A through F, but maybe more open to the calculation of A through F.
Because if a kid doesn't have to pass a test, our A through F score is
Well, we're afraid of that too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that most states have found that not to be true.
You know, one thing to consider.
Yeah, most of the states have found that data not to be true, that you need, as parents and educators, we just need to put value on them getting to be college and career ready. And that's what really gives them the motivation. If the 10th grade and ACT, SCP, whatever, have meaning, then the student is more motivated than just saying you needed to graduate. Because the students weren't going to graduate anyway. Still didn't care. And we still have students who graduate not knowing what career or what college, and this is what we're really trying to help, are these students.
The vast majority of those students were not required to pass those last 3 for the last however many years. That's one way we ought to look at it.
Right.
Once they got their 4 minimum, they could have tanked if they wanted to. Most everybody hit it hard. As far
Right.
as, I think we've got to be careful as we approach our staff this year, when we approach our students, not to use the terms, well, you don't have to pass it to graduate. Again,
Right.
number 5, 6, and 7, you didn't have to pass in the past anyway. So we continue to take the mindset that hopefully we have. Hopefully that'll help.
Right, and I think too, I mean, not that this always matters to high school kids, but, it's important for them to understand that the data is important to us. We use it for curriculum decisions, we use it for instructional decisions, we use it for accountability, we just use it for a lot of purposes. So I think I just kind of wanted to circle back. We have a lot of research that supports that if we have high standards and assessment that measure in standards, we achieve higher student achievement. But the caveat is, sort of in that last line, and this is what Black and William stated. They stated that standards are raised only by changing what happens in the classroom, beginning with teachers and students. So, doesn't matter how often we assess, it's what changes, if that has any effect on how you change your teaching and learning.
Dr.
So,
Dunlap, sorry,
questions?
before, someone left their keys in the back, so I wanna make sure that,
That last sentence.
yeah,
It was sitting there, right when you're writing.
okay. So,
They may be from another session.
okay, well, I'll take it for illustration. Okay.
Thank you all. If you have any questions, we're happy to stay and answer them. Sure. I love your enthusiasm over there. I like that.
Sounded great to me.
Drop down, but are getting back to school, or they have dropped down. And they should graduate this year, but they dropped out and they didn't pass. So,
If they come back, I mean, anytime after July 1, the assessment requirement went away. But it's then you need your board to have a plan or a policy to tell you what to do with those. In other words, maybe they needed to take a couple of the ELIs, they didn't pass them, they just had to take them, or maybe they had to take HCE, or maybe they had to take, whatever they want to do. Or they want to take whatever state assessment.
was there not, one for the ELA?
Flexible, but only for the group and
But
there is
next
one
year.
available online.
Yes.
And anybody who has
Let me see.
anybody who's
It, what, did you look through the whole document?
Because
I'm
after the new graduation requirements that the board develops. The next year. Exactly. So you'll have a lot of flexibility right now.
Yes.
Amazing.
Maybe we can get some of these through.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Y'all were great. So I guess we go back.
That was my reaction, but I mean, next. I mean, it never said that, that was just the.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I had been under the impression that Josh and the others had a session at this hour, and they don't. So depending.
Thank you, ladies, good job.
Thanks for what you do. So depending on whether Dr. Costa's gonna be back next week, I think maybe if you're interested in having them do what I've been doing, or at least being in here for questions.
It's up to you all to decide. I'm happy. I think it's gone fine.
Okay,
But I'm happy to have them.
Yeah.
If they're available. So
Well-
it's just up to. I'm actually looking for our box of these, which I hope we have some left.
is that it in the corner? Right there.
No, we've managed to get them all away. Not good. Unless they hit a box.
Is there anything under this desk?
I don't think so.
Nope. Nope. Well, here's a few.
I know. I'm keeping
Yeah.
those two there. And there are a few. Is that it?
Well, you think I ought to take these keys up to registration?
I'd hate to do that if they're Matt's or somebody's.
Okay.
I don't know if Craig is driving the
Yeah.
cargo van, and I wondered if that's what that was.
Well, Craig's the one that brought them up to me, so I don't
Oh,
know.
so they're not Craig's?
No.
Then yes, go ahead and take them, as long as they're not Craig's. That's fine.
Well, you've been the talk of the group, Dr. Dunlap.
I have been?
Yeah, one bid last night. Well,
I did, that was true.
well, good. That sounds like you had
It was
fun.
fun.
Good.
It was a nice break.
A little different scenario than pen and feather, wasn't it?
Yes.
There's none in that box. Nope. All right. Well, I guess that's just that's that. Oh,
Here's the key. Okay, now wait, what am I trying to do?
can I do anything for you?
No, I just can't find our assessment pages. But I'm sure they're here someplace, I'll just put the new ones back there.
All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Have a good rest
Well, I
of your
enjoyed
day.
it after the first day was bad.
Yeah, that one was
We
tough.
got it after that.
Well, I
It
mean,
was
it was, we had no prep, I mean, we had no prep,
Okay,
so
okay. These are gonna go where?
I'll take those when we clean
Okay,
up.
okay, good. Just making sure.
Did you do it in here, have handouts? We had to go to the remote and we couldn't hear anything that was going on, but it looked like there were handouts for.
They were, so on the back and right here.
Same thing?
No, these are different.
Okay.
These are our standards. And I'm gonna put a couple of them right here so you can see them, because they're two different handouts. One's math, and one is ELA.
Was there a key found in here?
Those are math. Is that all you need? Yeah, they're all,
Okay, perfect.
so those are the math, and here are the ELA.
No one turned it in.
Oh, good. I was about to take those down. I was trying to figure out who they belong to.